once you pass the CPA exam and you start working in the fall, how did you feel about the transition from college internship to the full-time position?
It was an adjustment for sure. Back in 2004, when I started, they made you wear pantyhose to work. I mean, how crazy is that?
Hello, hello! This is CPA Career Path Podcast with Rosey Flaherty, CPA MSA, where we dive into thrilling journeys in the world of accounting.
Hey, Mindy, thank you so much for being on our podcast today. So today we have a special guest, Mindy Rankin, a member at Warren Everett. So Mindy, before we start the interview, can you share with us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, thank you so much, Rosie, for having me. When I read about your podcast, I saw that you were trying to reach the young people and people that haven't even sat for the CPA exam yet. And I just really am honored to be a part of this podcast because I want to try to get more CPAs into the profession. So
Yes,
thank you.
we need more CPAs.
We
That's for
do.
sure. Yeah, yeah. Let's circle back from very beginning when you were in college. That why did you decide to go with the accounting major at that point?
So I have a very interesting story. I don't actually have an undergraduate degree in accounting. My
Oh.
major is mathematics, and I had a minor in information systems. I was very privileged to be able to play Division One college softball, so I went to Troy University and decided to major in math. First, I was going to do math education because I thought that I wanted to coach, in college and be on the softball field every day. And I just did not enjoy the education part. So I switched my major to just straight mathematics. I picked up a minor in information systems, and it was time to graduate. And everyone in the math department was actually taking the actuarial exams. And I decided that I did not want to live in a big city because I was like, okay, who hires actuaries? Big cities, big insurance companies. One of my professors actually said, why don't you just become a CPA then? I did not even know what a debit or a credit was. Like, literally did not know. So I applied for grad school to get my master's of accountancy, and I did not even know what a debit or a credit was. So I have definitely a unique path. I took all the entrance exams to get your master's, and I went actually decided to go to the University of West Florida for my master's degree. It's in Pensacola. My dad played basketball there, so that's why I chose UWF. And I did not even have principles of accounting. So they said before you can take graduate level accounting classes, you have to have principles of accounting. So my first semester, I took principles of accounting, microeconomics, and macroeconomics because I never took those as a math major. So I ended up in class with a lot of freshmen and sophomores. And of course, I did very well. And they were like, why did you do so good on this accounting test? And I said, this is my fifth year of college. So it was really funny to be in there and just take the beginning. I mean, I had to start basically with the principles, and then I had to take, of course, accounting one and accounting two before I could even start my master's classes as well. But I decided to get a concentration in taxation. Some universities have auditing or taxation, and I picked taxation. I think it's just because I wanted to understand the law, and I thought that my math background would have, more of an impact in the tax side. So I got my master's degree in taxation, and I actually learned what a debit and a credit was. So thank goodness for that. But that just goes to show, if you decide to get your undergrad in something else, you can always get your master's degree in accounting and still be eligible to sit for the exam. So I had a little bit of a unique path, but I'm really glad that my college professor mentioned sitting for the CPA exam.
I'm just curious, do you really enjoy all those accounting courses at the master degree level?
I did. I love to write. And back then in the early 2000s, when I was in college, we did a lot of writing balance sheets and income statements. And I'm serious. Like, I think that's what drew me to principles so much. I mean, obviously, I had to learn what debits and credits were, but we made T accounts and we made balance sheets. I'm sure that all of those done are in Excel now or Word. But we had to handwrite them. And so the first test, the professor said, "You have amazing handwriting." He wrote that on the paper. So anyway, that's kind of why I really liked it, because I felt like at the end of my balance sheet that it looked really pretty on the piece of paper, and I just understood it because accounting is really a math equation. So it just really, I understood it almost immediately, which is kind of crazy, especially with not having any background in accounting. I did have a high school friend that her dad was a CPA, and I do remember that they were one household that had a computer. And so this was way back in the 80s and 90s when not many people had computers. And so we would go to her house and play on her computer. We would play like Oregon Trail and Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego and like these old computer games. And so I do kind of remember him being a CPA. So I did think about that when that professor said that. I was like, oh, well, I kind of know somebody that's a CPA and he seems important. So anyway, that's how I ended up with a master's degree in accounting.
Oh, that's pretty cool because I know that a lot of people they like, oh, I go with accounting for a bachelor degree and then now I go for the master because I need more CP, more the hours, 150 hours to get to sit for the CPA exam. But you kind of a little bit different, and I'm glad that you like it. That's how we have another CPA here.
I am glad I liked it too, because otherwise I'd have to go back and take the actuarial exam, since I think that's about the only thing that a mathematics major does.
And so, once you finish your master degree in taxation, do you have any issue studying for the CPA exam?
So my year was one of the first years that you actually could take it computerized. So I did take the computerized exam, but I made the mistake of doing two. So there was a window of about 2 months, and I took my first two sections the first day it opened, and the last two sections the last day it opened. So I actually took all four parts in one window, and I passed, which I can't believe it. I mean, it was just crazy. I made a 75 on the FAR, so the rest of them I did fine on, but I just barely made it on FAR. But I did get all four parts the first window that it was open, that I was eligible to take it. But I did have a lot of time to study. So what my firm did at the time was I did an internship during tax season. I graduated, took classes in May. I finished in May with my master's degree, and they basically gave me the whole summer to study for the exam before I started full time with them. Most CPA firms bring you in September, October to kind of time frame. And so I basically had that whole summer to study. So right before I started back to work, I went ahead and set for all four parts.
Oh my God, how many hours did you study per day? Because it's a lot.
I don't remember, but it's funny because I was a newlywed. I had gotten married in December of 20 I got married in December of 2003, and then this was 2004 when I interned during tax season. I graduated at the end of 2000, or the May of 2004. But I do remember sitting there all day. My husband would get up to go to work, and so I would just get up and go sit at the computer and just study all day while he was at work. But I also got into baking cakes. So he would come home and I would have this fresh baked, beautiful iced cake. And he was like, "You've got to stop making cakes." He was like, "We're going to be too fat." So that, I
Wow.
don't even know why I was doing that. I guess I was bored, but I would sit there and study. And then I was like, "Oh, I'll go bake a cake." Because, it's kind of the first time where I was not playing softball because, in college we had a pretty rigorous schedule. We would get up at 5 a.m. and do weights, and we had practice. So we really didn't have a much time. And then I studied, and then I went straight and got my master's degree, and I did my internship, and then I graduated with my master's degree. So that summer was kind of like the first time where I had some free time. So I was either studying for the exam or baking cakes.
Wow, that's very impressive, Mindy. That's pretty crazy. You study and then you still have time to make cake. and you pass all four sections in one window.
I did.
Wow,
Yeah.
wow, that's
One of
amazing.
one of the things that I think helped me was during my internship, they asked me if I was interested in learning percentage completion accounting for construction contractors. And I don't know if you know, but that's kind of a little bit of a niche because they have cost in excess and billings in excess. There was several questions on FAR on the exam that asked about percentage completion accounting, and I knew all the answers to those. So it's almost like I feel like that's what put me over to get me the 75. It was just like that one subject that I had kind of done during my internship. Basically, I was like, it was probably one question or two questions, and percentage completion accounting is a little bit different than just normal gap. I mean, it's gap, but it's for construction contractors, and it basically measures their cost against their revenue when they're actually trying to come up with how much money they've earned when they're in the middle of a contract. So it's just kind of a niche area that I kind of got into in my internship. So I was like, that's what put me over the edge so that I could pass far.
I still think that it's pretty crazy to pass all four sections in just one window. I don't think there are many people who can do that. So kudos to you. I'm just curious if, because it was a long time ago, but if you can just like refresh your memories and just summarize maybe three tips for people who can pass the CPA exam in that like short period of time.
I think that, setting your schedule, I mean, it definitely helps if you have a break between your internship and your full-time work, start, because it is very hard. I mean, we have associates now, and I beg them when they leave their internship to please study for the exam that summer. I mean, you kind of want to be like, oh, it's my first summer after I graduated. I want to go to the beach and, I'm going to take a trip and all that. But honestly, if you can get that exam passed before you start work, it will be such a stress relief for you because once you start as an associate, the hours and the grind, it is so hard to fit in time to study, especially if you're a newlywed, which a lot of people that are finishing up school or, they're starting their lives. We just had an associate at our office who had a baby, and he's studying for the exam. And I was like, Braden, I don't know how you're doing all this because he's trying to work his hours. He's got a new baby at home. He's studying for the exam. So it's really hard. So that would be my number one tip. If you have a break in that summer after you graduate before you start full time, I would definitely try to study all the time. Like, do not go to the beach. Just get that behind you. You'll have plenty of time to go to the beach. And then I would probably say the second thing is obviously you'll want to have a really good review course. I actually had paper books, which I'm pretty sure they don't even have paper books anymore, but I feel like I'm very good at reading comprehension. So I read those books, like the paper books, and then would then get on the computer and do simulations and study questions and things like that. But it may just be because our learning style way back then was less computers, like we had actually paper books. So I like to read. So whatever best method that you learn, you should try to use that. I mean, some people are visual learners, and so those people can listen to podcasts or study materials or YouTube videos or whatever. And then some people are better at reading comprehension, so they need to read it. So whatever style that you learn the best in, that's how you need to study. Don't just because your friend next door does everything on the computer, and like just figure out your best method. And then the third thing I would say is, I mean, I think it's very important to try to get an internship because, especially in tax, I do think that your first internship in tax, I mean, when I sat down at the computer, I'm not sure I even knew how to do a 1040. I mean, I had a master's degree in accounting, an undergraduate degree in mathematics, and I looked at a 1040 and I was like, wait, I'm not sure they taught me this in college. I mean, we had a professor that taught out of the tax law code. So I had the big thick code and I knew where to go to look up things, and I learned the basics of the code, but I never got any instructions on how to do a 1040 essentially. So that first tax season, or tax internship, I should say, you really get a good handle on, a lot of things that help for the exam, especially the tax section. So I think that having an internship would probably be the third thing that I would recommend. If you can get that before you start studying and taking the exam, it kind of just puts everything together for you. Because even in tax, we do a lot of accounting work because our clients are a lot of small business, and so they don't have what I would say correct books. So we do accounting. I mean, we have to make journal entries and make depreciation and, like accounting entries that just helps you understand FAR because that's financial accounting and reporting. So there's a lot of things that I think hands on for an internship like really helps you with the exam.
I agree. It's just funny you mentioned about your associate who just has a baby. I just had a baby this
Oh,
past August,
congratulations.
and it was so busy and so exhausting. I couldn't do anything, so I have no idea how he can study for CPA exam. So I'm
I
curious
know.
how he could do it.
He takes the FAR again on Monday, I think. So he said he was going to be in the books all weekend, of course. And he took it last time and he got a 74. So he missed it by 1 point. I felt so bad for him. I was like, I just want to give you that 1 point.
Oh, it's so annoying when you got like 72, 73, 74, or even 70. It's just
Yep,
so close to 75 and say like I can just get one question right and I
I
will
know.
pass it. Yeah.
I asked him, I said, "Did you have any percentage completion on there? Do you understand what that is?" Like, I wanted to share with that knowledge with him right there. And he was like, "I think I did have one or two of those." And I was like, "Do you understand it? Like, let me help you understand it."
Wow. Wow.
We had another associate that took it as well, and he has actually been an intern with us for quite a number of years, and he told us that he went in overconfident because he has a very good grasp of accounting and tax returns, and he prepares returns. But he said that for the financial accounting and reporting, that he didn't spend enough time doing the actual calculations that they require because he's so used to relying on the computer. So, the tax brackets and just all the stuff that the computer software does, he is used to that. And he said on the exam, there was actually a lot of calculations, like manual calculations that he was having to do, and he was not prepared for that. So, that's just another little tip. Like, make sure that, when you're studying, that you're memorizing those, formulas and all that stuff that you have to do. I can't remember all of it, but I remember doing some of that.
Oh yeah, that's right. Now you said that. I remember I did have to do some like actual calculations on the
Mhm.
exam. But
Yeah.
yeah, with the software, it just make it so easy.
I know. I feel like a lot of the college classes sort of do. One of our interns was telling me that they were having to calculate what tax bracket, the person was in or something like that manually. And I was like, why? I was like, the software does that. I mean, our professor taught out of the code. So I wish more professors, especially in taxation, would just teach the tax law from the code instead of having I want to say busy work. I feel like sometimes that's busy work when they're just having you do formulas and stuff like that. Because, like I said, the computer software and really Excel does a lot of stuff for you as well.
That's true. I agree about that. So once you pass the CPA exam and you start working in the fall after you graduate, how did you feel about the transition from college internship to the full-time position?
It was an adjustment for sure. Back in 2004, when I started, they made you wear pantyhose to work. I mean, how crazy is that? So that's one of the things that I was like, I have to wear pantyhose every day. I mean, that drove me nuts. I mean, I can't even imagine in nowadays when we have hybrid and you can work from home. And I mean, can you imagine having to go to an office and wear pantyhose? I mean, that's just crazy to me. But that was one of the hardest parts because I had to dress up every day and sit at my desk for that long. I mean, we didn't have standing desks or anything. So I would be obviously in a suit with pantyhose and dress shoes. So I think the work, obviously, I already mentioned that I didn't know how to do a 1040. So thank goodness for my internship. But we started out I think that my firm at the time when I first came out of college, it was O'Sullivan Creel, which is also now Warren Averett. They were very good at kind of starting you from the basics. I mean, I think the first day I punched in checks. I mean, back then, we didn't have a computer program that sucked them in and you just categorize them. I mean, I started from the basics where I put the date in, I put the check number in, I put the vendor, and then I had to pick where to code the expense. So I think that that's a good way to start. I mean, everybody needs to know how to do that because you just start from the beginning and then work your way up. And that's kind of how they had it set up. So, I started at the beginning doing easy things like that and then worked my way up into doing more complex 1040s and, into we do a lot of 1120S's and 1065s, partnership returns. And so I think the one thing that you want to do is you want to become valuable to your employer. I worked extremely hard. I know that there's this myth out there about how many hours you have to work and all that, but it's really not about the hours. It's more about becoming valuable to your employer. Like you want to be the person that they want to give a return to because they know it'll be right, or at least you'll put in 100% effort. Like you'll take ownership of it, I would say. So what I tried to do was, I may not have worked as many hours as you should, even though I tried. I wanted to be somebody that got things right, got things done, asked the right questions, communicated well so that if they had a return, they would be like, let's give this to Mindy because she does those things. So I tried to become valuable. I wanted to be somebody they could count on.
Yeah, so quality over quantity. That's what you
Yes.
try to emphasize. That's amazing because when I give any task to any staffs, I always see like, oh, how was this staff doing this task in the past? Did he or she have a lot of issues, a lot of mistakes, or did he or she have just a few mistakes only? Can I trust the same staff to do this work this year or like additional work as well? So I absolutely agree with you that is all about quality. So people can trust you when they give you the job. And
Yes.
you feel like and save their time as well. They don't want to come back and give you like 40 review notes and they're like, oh my god, it's just so much time for them to just write down all those review comments as well.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because a lot of times when if I make a mistake, because everybody does when they're first starting, I kept a little notebook next to my desk. So I would write down things that I needed to remember. Like if I forgot to, update someone's address, even though they put it in there, I was like, check addresses. I would put myself like a little note in my notebook. So before I finished a tax return, I would actually go through my list and make sure I did everything that I had already gotten a new review note on
Oh,
so
that's
that I
actually
didn't
good.
make right, I didn't make the same mistake twice. So I didn't want my partners that I worked for to ever say, you know, you made this mistake last week because I had that note written down in my notebook that I was not going to make that again.
So you create your own checklist.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
really good tip.
And I even had a few stickies, sometimes when the laws change or there was like one of the things that I just remember when I was starting out, AMT depreciation adjustment, like I had a sticky note that said, check AMT depreciation. Because I wanted to make sure what I imported from the fixed asset program was correct and not just some garbage. Because a lot of times people don't look at AMT that much. So I had a sticky note that just said check AMT depreciation. So I didn't want to make that mistake ever again. So yeah, I think just having that little notebook with just some things that you need to check is really helpful.
Yeah.